That night, the baby would not stop crying and Becca had had enough.
Shut up! Shut up! Why would you stop crying?
Just then, a thought came to mind. Becca walked out of the hut through the stormy night, straight to the gutter that ran through the village to the city. When she got there, she didn't think twice. She just dumped the baby into the waters, turned around, and walked back home. The next morning, however, when Becca stepped outside, what she saw shocked her to the core. She saw John, her husband, and he wasn't alone. He was holding the baby and playing with it. What? How is this possible? John had been married for 10 years, 10 long years, and with no child. In the village of Umudim, that wasn't just seen as a misfortune, it was shame. Not because he didn't love his wife, he did. Everyone knew that. But in a village where children were the pride of a man's home, their silence was loud. John's mother had stopped being subtle. "You are not getting any younger, my son," she said again as they sat in the compound. "Our ancestors don't smile on an empty lineage." "I have a wife, Mama," John replied calmly. "That's enough." "Is it? Can love give you grandchildren, my son? Will it carry your name when you are gone?" He didn't answer. What was there to say? His mother wasn't wrong, but neither was he. He loved Amara, and love wasn't something he could trade because the village was watching. He didn't marry her because she could give him children. He married her because she was home, and he loved her. Amara knew the whispers too. She saw the glances, the pitying looks when she fetched water. Some had stopped even pretending to be polite. So, one night, after they had eaten in silence, she sat across from John and looked him in the eyes. "I won't hold it against you, my husband," she said. "If you want to take another wife, you can." John froze. "What are you saying, Amara?" "I know they are pressuring you, John. I see it in your mother's eyes, and I see how you carry it. If another woman can give you what I couldn't, then..." "No," John cut in. "You think I want a child with someone else? That I could sleep beside another woman while you are here?" Amara looked down. "Maybe it would be easier, my husband." "Easier for who?" "You think I'd have peace with another woman if it meant breaking your heart, Amara? Let them say what they want. Let them talk. You are my wife. If they want children so badly, then let them have them." She smiled faintly, tears threatening. That night, they sat staring at each other, saying nothing, just breathing and holding on. A home filled with love, but haunted by the absence of the laughter of children. Then a miracle happened when no one expected it. Amara had been feeling different, tired, dizzy, sometimes sick in the morning. She had been feeling something in her stomach for some time now. She didn't think much of it. After all, she had been through this before. Moments of hope that always ended in silence. But this time, something felt off, different. She kept it to herself for weeks. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was the ache of disappointment that had trained her not to hope too soon. But one morning, while she was cooking, she suddenly fainted. John rushed and called the village nurse. She ran tests, pressed her belly, asked a few quiet questions. Then she turned to John, a smile playing at the edge of her lips. "John, your wife is pregnant." John stood still, unsure if he heard right. "Eh? What did you say?" "I said your wife is pregnant. She's with child." John stood there happily. Amara sat up on the bed, a cheerful smile on her face. The nurse touched her shoulder gently. "This one is strong. I can feel it." Word spread through the village fast, faster than John could control, and the entire village was extremely happy for them. For a man many thought cursed with a barren home, this news changed everything. His mother cried the day she heard. She hugged Amara, called her daughter, and apologized for everything she'd said or implied. And just like that, the tone of the village shifted. People came bearing fruits and herbs for a healthy pregnancy. Old women offered blessings. The same eyes that used to stare now looked with admiration. Amara was treated like a queen. She was finally becoming a mother, a full woman, as some would say. John was a different man now. His smile returned. 9 months later, on a stormy night, the labor pains began. The rain came down hard, like it had something to prove. The winds howled. Thunder rolled across the skies. 2 midwives arrived with lanterns wrapped in cloth, their feet soaked from the muddy compound. John stood outside, pacing back and forth in the rain, soaked to the bone, praying louder than the storm. Hours passed. Then a cry, high, sharp, and alive. The midwives came out carrying a baby boy, strong lungs, wide eyes, healthy. John ran to meet them, laughing and crying all at once. "It's a boy," one midwife said, placing the child in his arms. His heart nearly stopped from the weight of the joy. But then, silence. "Where is Amara, my wife?" he asked. They didn't answer. He looked past them. "Where is she?" The oldest midwife stepped forward. "She gave everything. The baby is here, but your wife, she's not. She didn't make it." John stopped breathing. His smile fell. He looked down at the baby, his son, and then back at the door. The rain kept falling, but it didn't matter. The world had gone quiet. He held his son close to his chest and wept like a child. The house felt different in the absence of Amara. There were no footsteps from her, no soft humming while she cooked, no voice calling John's name from across the yard, just silence and the cry of a newborn baby. John named the boy Obina, which meant father's heart. At first, Obina's cry was a sound of comfort, proof that something precious had survived. But as the days passed and nights stretched without sleep, the same cry began to break John down. He tried, God knows he tried. He rocked the child to sleep, fed him with shaking hands, cleaned him, held him close through every tear. But the grief, the exhaustion, the endless demands of a newborn, it swallowed him whole. He barely ate, barely slept. His eyes turned hollow. Some nights he would sit at the edge of the bed and just stare, holding Obina against his chest while tears streamed silently. When his mother came to visit 3 months later, she barely recognized him. "My son, what is happening to you?" He didn't answer at first. She looked around the room, the unwashed clothes, cold food, a crying baby. "Is this how you live now?" John rubbed his forehead. "I don't know how to do this, Mama. I'm trying, Mama, but I'm tired." "You need help, my son." "No, I'm fine." "No, you are not." She lowered her voice. "Let me ask you again, and this time, answer with your full chest. How long will you keep honoring the memory of the dead while the living suffers?" John's eyes sharpened. "She's gone, John. Your wife is gone," his mother said, not cruelly, but firmly. "Amara is gone. May her soul rest. But this child, your son, he needs more than love. He needs care. He needs a mother, my son." "Mama, are you suggesting I marry someone else?" "Yes, my son. It's only been 3 months." "I know, but look at you. You are falling apart." John looked at his mother. "Mama, I won't dishonor my late wife like that. Not now. Not so soon." His mother didn't argue further. She only sighed, stood up, and kissed Obina's forehead before walking out. But the next 3 months were worse. Obina cried through the night. Every time John's eyes shut, the sound dragged him back to reality. The crib, the bottles, the washing, the feeding, it didn't stop. And grief had no pause button. It crept in through the silence, turning everything heavier. Friends stopped coming around. People kept their distance. Some pitied him, others whispered. Then one day, his friend Etonam visited. "My brother," Etonam said, sitting across from him. "You look like death itself." John laughed bitterly. Etonam, that's exactly how I feel." Etonam leaned in. "You need someone else in this house." "I already said no." "I get it. But you are dying slowly. And what happens to Obina if you break? If you collapse one day and no one is around, what happens to your child?" John looked up at his son, sleeping for once. "You think I haven't thought about that?" he whispered. "I think about it every single night. But, Etonam, it's been barely 6 months. I can't marry someone else." But deep down, John knew he couldn't continue like this. The next morning, he called his mother. "Mama, I am ready to take a new wife." So, just like that, John married Becca 6 weeks after he made the call. It was quiet, no big ceremony, just a few family members, a blessing from the elders, and a shared meal. Some said it was too soon. Others said he had waited long enough. Becca was beautiful, soft-spoken. She carried herself like someone who knew how to manage a home. She smiled often, spoke sweetly, and when she held Obina during the first visit, she cooed like she meant it. John thought, maybe things will be okay now. He didn't love her. Well, not yet. How could he? His heart was still with Amara, but he respected her, and more than anything, he needed her help. For the first few weeks, things seemed to work. The house looked cleaner. John had warm meals again. Becca bathed Obina, sang lullabies, and greeted visitors like a proper wife. The village women praised her. "You chose well," they told John. But when no one was watching, Becca was a completely different woman. She didn't like the way Obina cried. No, not at all. She didn't like the way John looked at the boy, full of warmth and softness. That kind of love should have been hers, she thought to herself. At first, she ignored the child. If Obina cried, she waited for John to return. If he soiled himself, she simply turned away. When John was around, however, she acted like a doting mother. But as soon as the door closed behind him, she slipped back into her indifference. One night, Obina started crying again, loud, piercing and relentless. John was deep asleep, but Becca wasn't. She had turned on her side, covered her head with a wrapper, but the sound kept cutting through, sharp and annoying. She got up, furious, walked over to the crib, and stared down at the baby with tired, angry eyes. "Shut up!" she hissed. The crying got louder. She picked him up roughly, held him too tightly, and pressed her hand against his mouth. "Why can't you just stop? Stop! Stop crying!" Obina's eyes widened, scared. His body trembled. Becca froze for a moment, realizing what she was doing. She dropped him back in the crib and stormed out of the room, breathing hard, as if she needed space from a child. It wasn't the last time. Weeks passed. Each time Obina cried at night and John wasn't there, well, John was there, but he was deep asleep. Becca would snap. Sometimes she ignored him for hours. Sometimes she shouted at him. And slowly, something dark started growing inside her. Resentment. She never said it out loud, but she blamed the boy. Blamed him for the attention. For being the reason John only touched her like a stranger. For being the ghost of Amara still living in that house. And one night, she had enough. It was nearly 3 a.m. and the crying started again. Becca sat up slowly, her eyes cold. She went to the cradle and took the baby. Then, an idea came to mind. She wrapped the baby in a cloth, stepped outside into the dark stormy night, and walked toward the edge of the village where the deep gutter ran. Everyone in the village knew the gutter. Water from the hills passed through it, cutting across Umudim like a black snake, leading all the way to the next town. When she got there, she didn't hesitate. She looked down into the rushing water, leaned over, and just like that, she dropped the baby into it. No sound, no second thoughts. She turned around and walked back home. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows. Birds chirped. The compound was calm. Becca yawned, stretched. She was happy. Yes, finally, that child is out of my life forever. Then, she stepped outside. When she got outside, she couldn't believe what she saw. There, in the middle of the compound, was John. But he wasn't alone. He was holding Obinna in his arms, laughing softly as he played with the boy. Becca froze. She blinked and looked again. But what she saw didn't change. John was carrying the boy and playing with him. What? How is this possible? She whispered. She walked up to John. Whose baby is that? She asked. What type of question is that, Becca? John responded. How can you be asking me such a silly question? John looked at her with a confused expression on his face. John, where did you find this baby? Where did you find him? Becca asked again. Becca, what is wrong with you? Where else do you expect me to find the boy if not in his crib? Are you alright this morning? Is something wrong with you? She had no response. She just stood there. She stared at the boy. Something wasn't right. Something was very, very wrong. Becca didn't feel at ease the rest of the entire day. She didn't speak about it, didn't ask questions. But every time she looked at Obinna, her throat tightened. How? She had watched the baby disappear into the dark waters with her own eyes. There was no way he could be here. Not alive, not smiling, not whole. And yet, he was. Obinna didn't seem any different. He laughed, he cried, he reached out for everyone who came close. But to Becca, the child was a shadow now. Something wasn't human about him. Something had returned from that gutter. Something that shouldn't have. But she couldn't say anything. Who would believe her? John was falling in love with his son all over again. He carried him everywhere, spoke to him like he was grown. He would come home early just to spend time with the boy, hold him as they watched the sun fade behind the trees. And Becca hated it. She hated it so much. Worse, it made her invisible. Her smiles no longer got the attention they used to. Her efforts, her cooking, her presence, they were all ignored for Obinna's little hands. Years passed, and Becca bore 2 children of her own, Akin and Ada, and with them, her heart opened again. She loved them fully, protected them fiercely. They were hers, no ghosts in their blood, no darkness behind their eyes. But as for Obinna, she only tolerated him. The boy grew, quiet, watchful, oddly calm for his age. He barely cried anymore. He preferred sitting under trees, watching birds or listening to the wind. Some villagers began to whisper and notice things about him. I saw a lizard follow him all the way to the stream, one woman said. Can you believe it? My son told me the boy knew what he dreamt about. How could he know? Even the elders noticed. Once, during a visit, Obinna asked one of them, Is your back still hurting the way it did last week? A question no one outside the elders' house could have known to ask. John laughed it off any time he heard people speak things about his son. Children say strange things, he'd say. But Becca was not laughing. One afternoon, the children played in the yard. Becca had just finished washing clothes and hung them on the line to dry. Obinna, playing around, stumbled and fell against the line, knocking down half of the clothes into the mud. Becca exploded. "You useless child!" she screamed. She grabbed a stick and lashed him across the back, again and again. Obinna didn't fight back. He didn't scream like most children would. He only cried silently at first. John wasn't home, so no one could stop Becca. However, as she continued to lash the boy, Obinna suddenly stopped crying and started laughing. Becca was immediately taken aback. What is wrong with this boy? Is he mad or something? She stopped and just turned and walked away in confusion. The next morning, something strange had happened. Akin and Ada, Becca's children, they woke up screaming. They complained that they were in pain. Their backs were covered in fresh red scars, exactly where Becca had beaten Obinna. She ran to them in panic, pulling their clothes off, examining the marks. They hadn't left the house. Nothing had happened to them, but the scars were there, painful and raw. John rushed in, eyes wide open. "Becca, what happened?" I don't know," Becca stammered. John turned to Obinna, gently removing his shirt to check if his son also had marks on his body. But when he checked, there was nothing. Not even a single mark. Nothing at all. Becca could barely speak. Her hands trembled. "What happened to Akin and Ada?" John asked, confused. Becca couldn't answer. She stood there, surprised, silent, afraid. Not of John, not of being caught, but of the boy, Obinna. First, she tried to get rid of him, but he suddenly came back, and now, this? Something was very, very mysterious. In the village, the festival was a time of joy. Families gathered from distant villages. Drums echoed from dawn till dusk. Smoke from grilled meat filled the air, mingling with the scent of fresh flowers. It was a time of stories, laughter, and togetherness. A time when grudges were laid down and hearts made peace. John's compound was full again. His parents came. His cousins brought mats and baskets of yams. The laughter that once left his home slowly returned. Becca wore her best wrapper, her headscarf bright as the morning sun. To the guests, she was the perfect wife, moving between pots, serving food, smiling as if nothing ever disturbed her spirit. But inside her, the fire was growing. Obinna was 15 now, tall, graceful, quiet. He helped carry firewood, swept the compound, and greeted elders with deep respect. The whole family adored him. Even the villagers came to shake his hand, calling him a child of peace. John glowed with pride, but Becca burned with jealousy. Even her own children, Akin, now 13, and Ada, who was 10, seemed drawn to Obinna. He protected them like a big brother, but they called him something more. Sometimes they'd say, "Obinna always knows what to do," or "Obinna told me my dream, Mama. Can you believe it?" It was maddening. One evening, just before the final day of celebration, the family sat in a circle under the moonlight. The women brought roasted plantain and palm wine. The men told tales of ancestors. Children giggled, sneaking pieces of meat when the elders looked away. Becca smiled, watching everyone eat. Her eyes kept darting to Obinna. He sat quietly, listening, smiling. She handed him a bowl herself, his favorite yam porridge, garnished with scent leaves and dried fish. No one saw the fine powder she had slipped beneath the food. No thicker than flour, no smell, no color. It was an old poison, One drop could kill a goat. Her uncle had taught her the root when she was young, told her it was used only on snakes and wild dogs. That night, they danced around the fire. Obinna ate everything. He laughed when his uncle told a funny story. He clapped when the boys drummed on overtuned pots. And Becca, she laughed too, wide, almost free. Then, morning came. Becca had poisoned Obinna's food and was hoping to wake up to the news that the boy was dead. But, once again, something mysterious had happened. Becca woke up with a strange calm in her heart. She turned to Akin's mat, expecting to hear his usual snores. But the room was quiet, too quiet. "Akin," she whispered, nudging him. No response. She knelt beside him, shook him harder. "Akin, wake up!" Still, nothing. "Akin, stop joking! Wake up!" But still, nothing. Becca's breath caught. Her hands moved to his chest. No rise, no breath. "Akin!" She cried louder now. John came running, then his parents. Chaos filled the room. A healer was called, but the boy was gone. He died in his sleep. No signs of struggle. Becca knelt in silence, trembling. Her mind was racing. She had poisoned Obinna, not her son. So, how? Then, as she stepped out into the compound, she saw him, Obinna, sitting under the tree, alive. No pain, no sickness, not even a cough. Becca was too caught in her emotion and walked straight toward him. She grabbed him by the shirt with both hands, tears in her eyes. "What did you do to him?" Obinna looked at her in confusion. "You devil! You killed my son!" she shouted. "I poisoned your food. You should have died. Not my son!" The entire village rushed out. John's father turned to Becca. Becca, Ogini, what did you say?" Becca froze. I didn't mean..." "You said you poisoned the boy?" John's voice broke. Becca backed away, confused, trying to fix her words. "No, I didn't know what I was saying." "Stop lying!" a cousin shouted. "We heard it clearly," someone else added. John stared at her, his face pale. "Becca, you tried to kill my son?" Still, Becca tried to deny. "John, this devil isn't your son. He's not even human. Don't you see it? I beat him and my children got his pain. I even threw him into the gutter when he was a baby. And he came back. He's not a child. He's a devil." Silence fell. No one moved. John stepped back slowly. "Becca, what did you say?" Becca clutched her head, her body trembling. She was unraveling now. "This boy is not normal. I threw him away. I let him die. But he came back. And now my son is dead." Obinna said nothing. He just watched, calm, eyes steady. The family stood in horror. Shock twisted their faces. One of the elders spoke. "Call the chief priest immediately." Akin's death had taken a toll on Becca that she forgot herself and ended up revealing the truth. The chief priest arrived in a matter of seconds. "I was called because a darkness lingers here," he began, voice deep and resonant. "A woman has confessed to murder. Another has returned from the dead. And a child is said to carry a spirit beyond understanding." He turned to Becca. "You say this boy is not human?" She nodded weakly. "Then, let the spirits tell the truth." He motioned to Obinna. "Step forward, child." Obinna walked toward him without hesitation. The chief priest extended a hand, placing his palm gently on the boy's shoulder. He closed his eyes. Silence. Then, the air changed. A gust of wind blew across the compound. though the trees didn't move. The flames in the nearby fire cracked and leapt, glowing green for a brief moment. The priest's eyes fluttered open, glowing with spirit and knowledge. He staggered. "What do you see, wise one?" John asked, heart pounding. The priest raised a hand. "This child is not like others. He was born of love, but touched by the divine. His spirit was chosen, not by man, but by the gods themselves." Everyone gasped. John stared at Obinna, confused. "What does that mean, wise one?" The priest continued, voice echoing as if many spoke through him. "His mother, Amara, made a covenant before her death. She went to the river goddess Nneka, keeper of the womb and taker of souls." John's mouth fell open. "Amara, my wife?" "Yes. She begged for a child. Her womb was empty for many years, and the goddess answered. But in exchange, Amara gave her life so that Obinna might live." Tears rolled down John's cheeks. He stumbled backward. "She never told me she couldn't," the priest said gently. "It was the price of the pact. Her silence sealed the covenant. The moment she drew breath in labor, her soul was claimed." Gasps echoed through the compound. Becca, still on the ground, could only sob. The priest now turned to her. "You tried to cast him into death, but death rejected him. You lashed him, and the gods returned the pain to your children. You poisoned him, and your own son paid the price." He shook his head. "This is not a child you can harm. He was born under a vow, guarded by the spirit of his mother and the power of the river. Everything done to him is sin. Nothing goes unanswered." Becca wailed. I didn't know. The priest raised his staff. "Ignorance does not cleanse evil. You acted from hate, and hate has no excuse." He turned to John. "You are his father. You must protect him now. Not just from man, but from fate itself." John knelt before Obinna. "My son," he whispered, "forgive me. I should have known. I should have been there." Obinna knelt too and braced him. "I've always known you loved me, Papa," he said softly, and that was enough. The family stood in silence, watching the two, father and son, bound by loss, love, and something greater than either understood. The chief priest looked around. "The truth is spoken. Now let justice follow." He pointed to Becca. "She must leave this house. Her spirit is stained with envy, and her presence is no longer safe for the child. Let her go. Let her seek cleansing." John did not argue. He stood, eyes cold and heart resolute. "Becca," he said, voice firm, "go. From this day, you are no longer welcome here." Becca sobbed, shaking, but said nothing. She was escorted out. And so the house fell quiet again, but not broken. That night, John sat beside Obinna under the mango tree. "I loved your mother with all my heart," he said. "I know," Obinna replied. "I never thought she would give her life for you. She knew I was worth it, Papa," Obinna said. Then he smiled. "And so do you." John pulled him close, and for the first time in many years, his heart felt whole. The story of Obinna teaches us that true love, sacrifice, and righteousness transcend even death, and that the divine often works in quiet, mysterious ways to protect the innocent and punish evil. It reminds us that envy and cruelty, no matter how hidden, will eventually be exposed, and that integrity, patience, and faith in the face of suffering will always be rewarded. Ultimately, the tale affirms that the bond of love, whether between a mother and child or a father and son, carry a power no darkness can overcome. Now to you watching this video, Let us know in the comment section what you have learned. Also, let us know what country you are watching this video from. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories like this. God richly bless you. Catch you in the next video.